Hello and welcome back to MDG Media, the top European coverage available here on YouTube. We are excited to be bringing you Round 2 Frontline FPO lead card coverage. I'm Connor Wood, and with me, Elias Luukkonen.
What's up, Connor? Nice to be here. I'm excited to see some FPO coverage. The FPO field in Europe is changing, and it's great to see some new players, some familiar players, and a course that is demanding but very scoreable.
Most certainly. We see here, getting our lead card started, coming in as your leader, Anneli Tõugjas-Männiste, a top player who has been on MDG Media a lot, and she's looking to set another hot round here.
And her country mate, Kaire Tekku, also a very solid contender.
Iida Lehtomäki, a young player with a lot of game, looking to make a statement here, already playing on the Disc Golf Pro Tour Europe at a young age.
And running up the card, Invild, Lønvik, still unsponsored, but potentially trying to change that in this season. And we're starting off on a tricky hole, hole number 1. A short hole, only 74 meters, but packed with OB. It is playing as an island hole, so you need to land inside of the island. Otherwise, you will have a 15-meter putt for par from the drop zone. Pretty nervy hole to start off the round.
There's no doubt we have Anneli on the tee here, looking to be playing the backhand hyzer. Looks a little bit inside, given the height, and that stability will find her out to the left and putting from that drop zone.
Yeah, tough start there, and the drop zone, 15 meters downhill with the OB behind. You even have to make a decision whether you want to run it or not, as Kaire is going for a much better line here, lower, more towards the right, and she will have no more than 4 meters for the birdie.
Iida making a similar mistake to Anneli, using that overstability but not hanging it out wide enough. Unfortunately, missing the island. We see Invild now.
This needs to get up. Potentially a skip over the edge. That's a good break there. With the wet conditions we've had throughout the past couple of days, there aren't that many skips on this course.
And a very daunting putt that you see here from the drop zone. A lot of players will just lay it up, given that if you're running the putt chain high and airball it or go over it, very likely to miss the island a second time. And Invild with a fantastic putt to get her round started, securing the early birdie.
Yeah, really smooth stroke there. I feel like that's something that can really help you get your round going, getting that good putt on hole 1. And even that one from Kaire, just 4 meters, but having some sort of a putt on hole 1 to get that birdie is ideal. And as we see, 2 bogeys and 2 birdies, very common score on this hole. You usually only see birdies or bogeys, as the island is pretty small.
Yeah, in some places just within circle 1 and in other places just outside, but all very makeable putts if you're on the island. And we move on to hole 2, a 115-meter par 3. You have this initial gap to hit out of the trees, although it doesn't come much into play. You have OB lining the left and right side, where you will see the basket perched at the edge of the tree line on the right of your frame at this point. A very long, demanding par 3 that requires good accuracy at the distance without finding any of the dangers, and a bit of a bonus birdie on this front 9.
Yeah, I think one might argue that this hole is slightly less dangerous than hole 1, as the fairway is much wider. But very long hole, and this good shot from Kaire here. Even a little bit short, but she's going to have a good look from just outside the edge of circle 2. Or circle 1, excuse me. This one a little bit more left, potentially challenging the left OB, but no skip as expected on the wet, muddy grounds.
Anneli, a very strong player off the tee. And we see her as well finding the stability a little bit early in the flight. This fairway does slope right to left softly as well, tends to drag the discs a little bit further from the basket than players would like.
And Iida a little bit hesitant on the release there. Very much early left. You could wonder if she's battling some nerves, being a very young player, and a pretty big stage here, as we have the Disc Golf Pro Tour Europe, and this is potentially one of the biggest events of her career. That's a good shot there. Iida obviously won the Junior European Championships last year, but it's still a little bit different than playing in this big open tournament.
No doubt, competing with some players who could potentially have as much experience as she has in age. A good upshot by Invild there.
And now for the highlight birdie, Kaire from about 14 meters. Not quite the line, but she will be happy with a par on this hole. Let's see Iida for the bogey. Important putt here, but not quite the case. She's gonna be starting over par. Severely over par through 2 holes.
Kaire able to capitalize on her putt there. And as we mentioned, par, a very common score here on hole 2. Kind of difficult to birdie, but also kind of difficult to bogey if you don't find the OB or miss the early gap, as we see the short putts remaining.
And I think one thing to keep an eye on throughout the entirety of the round is how these players are able to manage the slippery, muddy greens and fairways. Anytime you have to throw a shot, from the fairway or have a longer putt, you can't really use your legs as much as you would like. So you need to be more upper body heavy. We'll see how that affects them. Moving on to hole number 3. A beautiful straight shot of 106 meters, playing just slightly downhill. You have this OB on the left side, that is the biggest danger on the hole. You need to keep your disc moving perfectly straight, or some players even trying to turn it slightly to the right. The right side OB is in play, but only about, it will go more towards the right, about 30 meters before the basket. So if you're pin high and to the right, you'll be plenty safe.
Absolutely. The error to make is to the right side. Kaire going to get us started. A natural hyzer flip shape. And a good straight piercing line that will find herself inside the circle for her birdie putt.
Yeah, that's a nice play. And Invild kind of challenging the left side OB, hoping for a good kick. Sometimes you can hit some trees on the edge of that OB line, but looks like she might have just been sucked into the bushes. And that will be a long look, most likely a layup for the par. Or, layup for the bogey, look for the par.
Anneli just a little bit low from the hand, doesn't find the glide to put herself too close, although certainly an open putt and a very common landing zone there for a slightly safer shot. As we see Iida looking to get a start on her round here after a few over par results on the first few holes. She unfortunately bleeds out a touch left, and I believe found that OB. She'll have a long look for the par save, although on that slightly elevated basket does bring in more risk. And you see the mud there, mentioned by you earlier, Elias. A big moment for Iida here. Do you think she's running this?
I think she was trying to make a bit of a run, but with the elevated basket, pretty tough. Same thing for Anneli there. Kind of a half run. Not really trying to take too many risks. Invild with a full run. That's very respectable. Takes a lot of guts to go for that elevated basket. And Kaire here for the birdie. Not quite to be though. She would have gotten a stroke or more on the entirety of the card with that one. You can see that the wind is pretty much mostly down. We might have some swirling winds on the more open parts of the course, but really the challenge on this round was more the moist and the rain than the wind.
And moving on here to hole 4, a 97-meter softly uphill par 3. You have this tight gap about halfway down the fairway between the rough on the left and the trees on the right. A lot of right-handed players will throw some understable plastic in a backhand shape, try to flip it through the gap and fight their way up to this green where they will be met with a elevated basket to increase the risk and really reward shots that can get a little bit closer.
Yeah, for sure. And this green, not only the elevated basket making it more difficult, but also probably the muddiest green on the course. So putting is going to be difficult, and Kaire will have to scramble. Luckily not taking any big kicks, so she made it good way down there. Probably will still have to have a difficult shot for the par.
Iida as well getting it turned a little bit too early. As I mentioned, the understability is maybe the most natural shape for the right-handed backhand, but you can certainly find yourself in trouble if it flips too early. Invild with a similar line rather, but a slightly better result. Fortunate to hit that gap. Iida here with a bit of work left to do. Pinched in the height, she shapes a soft anhyzer up to the green, and that's well done to put herself in the circle for a birdie look, although still a daunting putt there.
Yeah, good angle control there. And Kaire here looking to go with what looked to be a latitude harp, and that's well done there. No surprise to see an Estonian player with that accurate sidearm.
And I believe the harp is west side.
Yeah, sorry for that. That was a amateur mistake on my part. Yes, very much west side discs. Still Latitude players able to use all of the Trilogy brands.
Great.
And almost a really nice putt from Anneli there.
And Iida there with a confident putting stroke finds the chains, solid par. Just barely able to reach her disc out of the elevated basket. And great perseverance by that young player there to keep forging ahead after a tough start. With some small turbo tap-ins here on the elevated, you can see just how tenderly they're stepping in this severely muddy green.
Yeah, this is definitely a green that when you're getting off, you will use a minute or two to clean your shoes on the next tee pad to avoid some slips. Moving on, hole number 5, the first par 4 of the day, 172 meters. It's a clear two-shot hole. The first one, you need to throw something straight with the right finish, hopefully staying relatively close to the tree line. And on the second shot, if you're perfectly in the sweet spot, you will have about somewhere between 90 and 70 meters of a straight tunnel shot with a bit of a low ceiling.
Kaire here shaping a soft flip up to fading shot, and she bends just around the corner. Anywhere near that walking path is an indicator of a good shot that will leave you with a straight look to the green. So she really got around at the last moment to the ideal spot. Anneli here shaping the less traditional backhand, and she, I think, will still be left with a slightly pinched angle as she didn't find the fade at the end of her flight she might have looked for.
Yeah, the backhand is super tough here. You need to turn it right at the end, but with a tree line you really can't have that early turn. And Iida there, not getting a whole lot of distance, kind of putting quite heavy anhyzer angle on the disc, but she will have a decent angle, definitely some sort of a chance to get to the green from there.
And Invild going to be fading towards OB, but settles in time. Does find herself inbounds, and that will open up her angle into the green, fading out that much left. Without the penalty of OB, it's actually quite favorable to be further out to the left if it's not too far up the fairway. And Anneli, you see she's forced to shape this awkward straddle forehand, but she's done well to put herself in the mouth of the tunnel.
Yep, good shot there, and you can see the angle difference between Anneli and Iida here. Iida having a straight to slight anhyzer look to the green, leaving it a little bit low though, so she will have some scrambling left to do for the par.
Invild needing some flip up, and she too just gets around. All three of them so far have entered the tunnel, although we'll still be left with about 30 meters or so until the basket. Kaire, in an ideal landing zone off the tee, is able to push this a little bit further, and she has snuck her way up to just outside circle's edge, probably about 12 meters in for her birdie. Anneli still with some work to do here.
It's pretty well done though. We'll have just a short putt left. And I think one thing to note about this fairway also is very muddy. Actually, our tournament director, the legendary Belgian tournament director Jean-Louis Tange, he said that this course hasn't been as muddy this time of the year in 10 years. So we're truly experiencing some exceptionally muddy conditions here.
But certainly an extra element that our field has to contend with. And Kaire, with a bid for her birdie, finds it just on the right side. You saw the tree definitely obfuscating her natural putting stroke. And Iida now, I gotta say, for such a young up-and-coming athlete, the form on both the putt and off the tee looks really refined and like much more of a mature player's throw than what you would guess.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's going to be the key to having success in the future in the field of FPO. You know, players are throwing further and further. And in 5 to 10 years, you will need to have great technique and have the disc fly as far as possible to even have a chance to, you know, compete on the highest level.
And certainly still the sport at a stage where it's growing rapidly year by year, and the overall field still is increasing at a rapid rate. Really fantastic to be a part of this blossoming European Disc Golf Pro Tour. We see here hole 6, one of the most daunting holes on the course, par 4 at 145 meters. A lot of players will try to get their first shot to this opening here on the soft downslope. They will then need to navigate this winding tunnel first to the right and then to the left. Players will, most of them, prefer to end to the left on their first shot, opening up the backhand hyzer on the second down the tunnel. But it really is a pick your shot sort of hole. Most importantly, you need to hit the gap and make progress through the trees.
And that's exactly what Kaire is doing here. A lot of distance off the tee, even fading outside of the fairway, but you have a bit of a backdoor right there. So if she stayed on that path, there might be a chance for her to go for a forehand hyzer kind of outside of the fairway.
Absolutely. It's almost detrimental to go too far off the tee shot, as you do avoid that main fairway and might have to take the back door, as you mentioned, Elias. Anneli finding the early left trees, Iida just squeaking by them, and if she can slow this down in time, that is a perfect shot, and she will have a short, straight look to the green.
Invild here also hitting the fairway nicely, but this is hyzering out. Not going to be a great angle for the approach as she's contending with the bushes. That will likely ask for a forehand pitch out.
Anneli going full driver here. And unfortunately pays the price of trying to aggressively shape that second tunnel. Will be forced to pitch out.
Yeah, I feel like that's what happens so quickly on this hole. When you have a shorter drive, you know, the fairway looks tight, but it's very manageable. You know, even from a short drive, you can get to the green, as Anneli throws a really good approach. There will only be a bogey after a couple of errant shots. Well managed, but, you know, this hole, it's very tempting. You need to calm your nerves and, you know, not get too aggressive here.
And Iida there, pinpoint to the green. 2 perfect shots here to dissect hole 6. Find herself with a tap-in birdie upcoming. Invild as well looks to have a nice straight shot to the green. And Kaire opts not to go through that back path, but pitch out into the fairway and leave herself with this look.
Easy work there. Everybody quite close for the putt, which is once again good on this green since it's very muddy and sloped. A lot of the greens I feel like on this course are not particularly sloped. There might be some small slopes here and there, but this one probably one of the steeper greens you have.
As we see the full range of scores there from birdie to bogey, I think quite common for hole 6. Anneli still holding that lead position, sitting at even currently. Overall, 2 over for the round.
And moving on to hole number 7, which requires a precise shot and a little bit of luck. Most players are trying to go through where the drone will be flying in just a couple of seconds. Pretty much aim at this middle tree that is just slightly bent to the right and hopefully miss it on either side. Really the best play is to do that. Hopefully keep your shot low enough to not contend with the branches, but high enough to get all of the distance to at least the edge of the circle. If you're on the down, you know, the very down part of those stairs, you're going to be at 10 meters, and Iida will be struggling there.
Kaire shaping the forehand flex, another common line players will attempt, but that late tree line kicking her right into the rough. Simply going to be looking to save par from there. We'll see if Invild is able to navigate her way up to a putt. That also is a little bit far out considering the elevation. From that distance, maybe on flat ground, it would be a reasonable putt, but given how high this terraced green goes, you really want to get up to the steps to find yourself a putt. Anneli from there might have an opportunity to step the backdrop of the basket. Very forgiving to try and crash one in on a long run or putt. Iida now after pitching out.
Just trying to hit one of the small gaps between the trees, but not gonna be quite the case, and she will have a long putt for bogey, as we see a lot of struggles on this hole. It's a tricky hole if you don't get far enough off the tee. Really, this approach isn't too difficult as you have a great backstop. Invild showing some good touch there, landing the disc without fading too much.
As Iida continues to chip away, she will now find herself with a putt laterally across the hill, mostly flat. Kaire giving it a soft bid, which is quite common, although you see coming in at a perpendicular angle on the sort of swinging hyzer can find you rolling down. Anneli matching the grade of the hill nicely there.
Important putt here for Iida, and another good stroke there. Looks like her putting is finding its groove after the slight miss she had earlier on hole 2. That's good to see. That's going to be, unfortunately, as Anneli misses. But as I was about to say, putting is going to be quite important on this course as the holes aren't incredibly long. And almost all of the holes you're expecting to have, you know, the putting be at least a significant contributor to your score.
Most certainly, particularly on these more wooded holes, very rare that players will be parked. So that sort of 8 to 12 meter range, if you can capitalize on it, will go a really long way here in the Parc Bourdon course. Certainly a gettable birdie here, though. Here on hole 8, an 80-meter par 3, softly downhill, and a tunnel shot the whole way. I'd say the left side rough is slightly more forgiving than the right side, but really you want to pick your favorite putter or potentially mid-range and shape it down the middle, getting some ground play. A lot of players will hit the floor before the basket, and because of that downslope, get a few more meters of ground play, even in this heavy mud. Offers both forehand and backhand looks, so this is another one where you can pick your favorite shot and disc for this range and just try to hit your gap like Invild has done there, and she slides herself up to just within the circle.
Yeah, well done there. Let's see if Kaire can follow. Looks a little bit inside here, not quite getting it flat through the gap, which is important, with especially with slight slope from right to left on the fairway. If you get your disc on too much of a hyzer, it will be moving left quite fast.
Anneli as well with a great piercing shot. Slows down just in time. Iida here looking to bounce back after a tough hole 7. A fortunate kick back into the fairway there. She'll be left with a putt up to the green or a soft throw. And that's not so soft.
Not quite as soft there. Yeah. I feel like that's kind of easy to do on this hole as you're sloping, or the fairway is sloping down all the way to the basket and also behind. But Iida will definitely not be happy with the speed control there. Having a long par putt on the easiest hole on the course. It is playing almost a quarter of a stroke below par on average. So definitely not a hole you want to have a long par putt on, and as Iida will be doing, take a bogey on.
Invild here with a look for her second birdie of the round, and she is on the pole. Really like her putting so far. It's been accurate, it's been consistent, comes out very clean, as Anneli as well off parking the hole just from the bullseye's edge, puts it in for 2.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I feel like Invild putting stroke is looking so smooth, great spin, and the angle. And I feel like where she's releasing the disc, it just looks very consistent. And we're moving on to an interesting hole 9. There's so much that can happen on this hole off the tee. You want to throw something straight with a right finish. Ideally land on this path. If you're on the path, you want to throw something straight up the hill with a left finish. It's a par 5, not the longest of par 5s, only 183 meters. But you really have to do 3 curves. On the first shot, you have to move right. On the second shot, you want to move straight or slightly left. And then on the third, go down the hill all the way to the basket. A tricky hole that really can offer a lot of danger.
And Invild with a shot that looked not too bad, but quite an unfortunate kick off to the right. Although you want to end right towards the end of the shot, if it's too early, it really reduces the distance that you can get on the second shot. And Anneli has smoked this down the middle, flips the catch cam. A lot of great progress there, and that's certainly a position that she can set herself up for the birdie from.
Yeah, for sure. And Kaire there hitting one of the middle trees. But, you know, even from there, she can, with some great shots, get down the fairway and still potentially a chance for birdie or par. Not to overlook Iida's great shot that was perfectly on the path. That's the best look of the group so far.
And I think a perfect shot from Iida there. Exactly where you want to be, both in distance and in width. Kaire continues to chip away. We go to Invild now. We'll see what she's left with. And quite an okay position for her to continue up the fairway. But you can see how many trees there are. This is a hole that a lot of players discuss about not really having a clear fairway or a clear line to the basket on. It feels like every time you play this hole, you're hitting different gaps and different shots are required of you. So really testing as well the creativity and resilience of these players.
Yeah, for sure. It's all about, finding the gap from your position, because you're never going to be in the same position twice. At least that's very unlikely. As, for example, Iida will be there on the left side of the fairway. She will have a look to the basket with a forehand analyzer, but it's going to be tricky. And compared to Anneli there, more of a straight shot from there, much more ideal.
You can see now what Anneli is left with, a straight look down the tunnel. She pushes the ceiling a touch, causing her to fade out, but the distance was all right. She'll be putting sideways towards the basket for her birdie. Invild. The second tunnel sloping downwards, and she runs it with full confidence into the chains for the birdie. What an incredible throw-in.
Wow, I'm amazed with how fast that disc hit the basket. Let's take another look. So she hit it on a hard hyzer and a lot of speed. Damn, I'm happy the basket got in the way there, because that could have been on the next fairway. But that's going to be a birdie she will remember for a long time.
And what a find for her there. Really, certainly one of the more difficult birdies on the course. And to find it that way, as you mentioned, memorable and special moment there, particularly to have that on camera. Iida now opting to lay that up. That's, I think, another sign of a slightly mature player there. From that range, putting downhill, could very quickly find some extra strokes. Anneli with a chance there for her birdie off the cage. But Kaire, good for that putt.
Yeah, that's good par. It's not a hole that you're expecting a birdie on. And even the par is a minority in the field, with 54% of the field getting a score above par. So either a bogey or more.
Not too surprising given the amount of obstacles. But that'll be our front nine in the books as we take a look at the scores here. Anneli sitting at 2 over for the round with 3 bogeys and 1 birdie. Kaire so far keeping it clean at even with 1 of each. Invild and Iida certainly trying to push as well to retain their position on the lead cards for day 3. We appreciate you joining us here, Elias. Always a pleasure to work together. And make sure to support us with a like, comment, subscribe, or over on patreon.com/MDG Media.